My name is Leo, and at 35, I never thought I would be the one to dismantle my family's legacy. But when my father sold my late grandfather's classic car, a vintage Porsche, he had promised to me and gave the money to my younger brother, I knew the time for quiet acceptance was over. They had no idea I had the resources and the cold resolve to buy it back and use it as the ultimate lesson in loyalty. For as long as I can remember, I was the responsible son. My brother, Evan, 3 years my junior, was the brilliant one, the golden child whose every whim was indulged. I was the steady hand, the one who followed the rules, got a sensible degree in accounting, and built a stable life. Evan was a firework, dazzling and unpredictable, leaving a trail of beautiful messes for others to clean up. My parents were his willing janitors. The car was more than just a vehicle. It was a 1967 Porsche 911, painstakingly restored by my grandfather. He and I spent every weekend of my teenage years in the garage, hunched over that engine. One day, Leo, this will be yours, he'd said, his hands stained with grease. It belongs to the person who respects the work. When he passed, the car became my tangible connection to him. A promise my father, Arthur, saw it differently. He saw it as an asset. As Evan's artistic career as a freelance photographer failed to launch, my father's financial support for him grew. He'd borrow from his retirement, remortgage the house, and sell off family heirlooms. I warned him repeatedly, offering to help him create a budget. But my practical advice was always dismissed in favor of funding Evan's dream. The betrayal came swiftly. I stopped by my parents' house one weekend to find the garage empty. My father told me with a shrug that an investor had made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Evan needs the capital for a new gallery project, he explained. You have your career, Leo. Your brother needs this chance. He didn't understand that he hadn't just sold a car. He had sold a piece of my history and my heart. My mother, predictably, supported his decision. Evan has so much potential. Darling, she told me over the phone, we have to support his art. The fact that I had been supporting them for years, quietly paying for their rising insurance costs and property taxes, was a detail they conveniently overlooked. I was reliable, so I was invisible. Evan was a crisis, so he was a priority. That night, a cold fury settled in my bones. I had spent my life being dependable, making the sensible choices, and what had it gotten me sidelined? My promise from my grandfather was worthless next to Evan's latest impulsive venture. I decided then that I would not let them erase my grandfather's legacy. I would get the car back no matter the cost. Finding the buyer was easier than they imagined. The classic car community is small. I made a few calls, and within a day, I had a name. A wealthy collector known for buying undervalued classics from owners in distress. He had no emotional attachment to the car, only to the profit margin. This was a business transaction, and I was fluent in the language of business. I used a corporate intermediary, a shell company I had set up years ago for my own investments, to make contact. The collector was surprised to get a purchase offer so quickly. I offered him 20% over what he paid my father, a price high enough to guarantee a quick, no questions asked sale. The money was a significant hit, but it was worth it. 2 weeks later, the Porsche was mine again. I had it transported to a secure, climate-controlled facility. Seeing it again, touching the cool metal, and smelling the familiar scent of old leather felt like reclaiming a part of my soul. But my plan was far from over. Owning the car wasn't enough. I needed them to understand what they had thrown away. The next phase required patience. I watched as Evan burned through the money with predictable speed. There was no gallery. Instead, there were lavish trips, expensive camera gear, and parties that were thinly veiled attempts to network with people who could advance his career. His Instagram was a monument to my father's poor judgment. As I knew he would, Evan ran out of money within 6 months. The calls to my father started again, desperate pleas for more funding. But this time, the well was dry. My father, having sold his last significant asset, had nothing left to give. That's when my phone finally rang. It was my father, his voice strained with a manufactured "Leos, my boys," he started. "Your brother is on the verge of a major breakthrough, but he's a little short on funds." I let the silence hang in the air before I responded. "Is that so?" I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. "We were thinking," he continued, "that since you're doing so well, you could help your brother out. A small loan, just to get him over the hump." "Let me be clear, Dad," I said, my voice cold. "The family bank is permanently closed." The shock on the other end of the line was palpable. I had never said no to them before. "But he's your brother," my mother cried, having clearly been listening on speakerphone. "And you are my parents," I countered. "But that didn't stop you from selling the one thing that truly mattered to me." I let them stew in their financial panic for another week before initiating the final act. I sent them an invitation, a crisp cardstock summons to a family legacy unveiling. I gave them a time and the address of the secure facility where I stored the car. Curiosity, I knew, would be too much for them to resist. They arrived together, a united front of confusion and apprehension. I led them through the pristine facility, past rows of exotic and classic cars, until we reached a covered shape in a private bay. "What is this, Leo?" my father demanded, his patience already thin. "You called this a legacy unveiling," I said. "And it is." With a single, smooth motion, I pulled the cover off the Porsche. The gasp my mother let out was one of pure shock. My father simply stared, his face turning a pale Asian color. Evan, for his part, looked confused, as if he couldn't quite place the car's significance. "How?" my father whispered, running a hand over the fender as if to confirm it was real. "I bought it," I said simply, "from the man you sold it to." "You went behind our backs," my mother accused. "You mean like you did?" I shot back. "This car was never yours to sell. It was a promise between me and Grandpa, a promise you cashed in to fund Evan's vacation." Evan finally spoke up. "It wasn't a vacation. It was a networking trip," he said defensively, proving he still didn't understand. "This car," I said, placing a protective hand on the roof, "represents every sacrifice I made, every responsibility I shouldered, while you poured all of your resources into him. This car is a symbol of your choices." My father looked down, unable to meet my eyes. My mother began to cry softly. Evan just looked angry, like a child who'd had his favorite toy taken away. I then handed my father a small, framed document. It was a legal trust. I have placed the car in a trust, I explained. It can never be sold again. It will be passed down through the family, but only to a steward who understands its value beyond money. I let that sink in. Neither of you, I said, looking from my father to Evan, will ever be that steward. The weight of my words filled the sterile air of the garage. I had not just reclaimed an object. I had reclaimed our family's history and made myself its gatekeeper. I had used their own currency, money, to deliver a lesson in things that are priceless. Loyalty, respect, and promises kept. This was not a victory that felt joyous, but it felt just, "We need to leave now," I said, pulling the cover back over the car, shrouding it once more. As they walked away, I saw not the arrogant, entitled family from before, but three broken people, finally forced to confront the consequences of their lopsided world. The silence in their retreat was my true reward. My relationship with them has never been the same. It is distant, formal, and built on a new, unassailable boundary. They no longer ask me for money. Evan was forced to get a real job, and my parents are living on a strict budget of their own making for the first time in their lives. The lesson was harsh, but it was necessary. Sometimes, to protect a legacy, you have to be willing to become the villain in your family's story. The Porsche sits in its secure home, a gleaming monument to a promise I refuse to let be broken. It is a reminder that true value isn't something you can sell. It's something you earn, respect, and protect at all costs. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to go to extreme lengths to protect something a family member took for granted? A memory, a promise, or an heirloom? Share your story in the comments below. And if you believe that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost, subscribe to Revenge with any